digital set and design for projection. Just a little workshop going from concept through into a set design and then through to the projection itself. So the first thing is obviously getting some concepts. In fact, what we want to do is we want to draw a whole lot. Really have some fun working with different shapes, and we're looking at sort of quads. So the primitives basically being a circle, being squares, and being triangles, etc. are some of the key things that we're going to work with. But hey, we can work with any shape you like. So what I've got here is right through to the projection itself, and if I go back to just the start scene, we're going to be setting up scenes. We're going to be using a program called Madmapper. Nice, affordable program that's used for projection mapping and many other things, but this is going to be great fun, and it's actually pretty easy to get into. It can go very complex with code and all sorts of things, or you can make it really simple. And that's what we're sort of doing with this example here, and it's just these scenes that are set up, and we can control them through each stage. So stay tuned, keep following, and we'll take you through this process. Here we are just at the start of building a set or coming up with an idea for one, and I'm just working with a program called Sketchbook Pro. This is a fairly affordable program, around about $19 or something, depending on where you buy it from. It might be less in the States and the UK. Nonetheless, it's really good to just quickly draw with a Wacom tablet. You can work on an iPad as well, whatever's going to be easiest for you. Anyway, rather than pen and paper, this is a good way to work. So all I've got, if I just turn these eyes on and off, it just simply layers. You can have as many as you like. A lot like working with Photoshop, works very similar, but just nice and easy to use and learn, very traditional like. So just on the line layer, maybe I want to come up with some more concepts. So initially, when you're first putting things together, what's actually really good to do is if I just click on new layer, and I can give it a name by just going name here, and I'll just call it sketch. Okay, so just sketch and hit OK. So we've got that there, and it's just going to be a sketching layer, which I'm not going to worry about using rulers or anything. And in this case, I'm just going to go and use a different color. Maybe I'll just start with a light blue. It's a little bit doing a blue pencil line, if you will. And in this case, I could use a pen or a pencil. I might stay with the pen. And essentially what I'm doing is just coming up with some ideas. So I might just want to do some circles on this one, and just to get a feel for it. And remember, this is on its own layer, I'm not destroying anything. And maybe I'll have a stand here, and the base is just going to sit through like that. Yeah, and I like that one. This time it's going to be more of a shapes that go in like so. In fact, I'm going to even just do a box like that, and I'm going to drag it through. Just when I want to get a few colors, if you will, or a few shapes to work with, and I'll just bring that through like that. Now this program is really good to work with primitives, basically something that you can use as a quad, circles, triangles, squares, etc. So that's just putting that together, initial idea, and do as many scamps as you like to really get an idea of what direction you're going to go with. Well, in the case of this one, if you wanted to now take it to a more final version, what I would do is I'd actually just bring that down, and it just takes the opacity down. Then I can actually just go through here and just click a new layer, and I might still use the pen tool, or I might use the pencil tool, and I might just go and choose a darker color. Maybe not black or something that's very dark, just to give a bit of a feeling. And in here, what you can do is just make the pencil just a bit thicker, and then I can use these tools. There's a whole range of tools. There's a new version of this now, which this one was a free version, but there's new versions which actually give you much better rulers as well. So if I was going to put this together, I'm just going to go through, and I can just double click on get a circle shape like so, and then you can actually just scale it in. And when you're putting this together, love to get that really loose sort of feel for how it's going to go, and you're really getting some really good initial ideas for the sort of set that you want to create. So then I'll just change over to this tool, and it's really just a ruler, and you can get curved rulers, all sorts of things as well. Make sure you see down the bottom there, so we're getting the angle. You'll see down the bottom there, not going to be too perfect, and I'm just going to put this together just as I start constructing this set. So here I am just getting some ideas that I want to put together, And what I'm going to do is just going to take it over and just quickly do this. As you see, it's nice and quick to work with, and of course being digital, then you can just send it to whomever you want, just like you would a Photoshop file. You can save it as JPEGs or output to a TIFF or just as Photoshop, or whatever way you'd normally work when you're putting images together as concepts in a program like Photoshop, which we're going to use quite a bit as we go further on. So here I am just putting this together now. I'm not going to worry too much about the little stands there. I just want to get that like so, and then I can just click that and I've gone out of that pencil version. What I want to do is now just give a bit of background color to this one, so I'm just going to add one more layer here, and I'm going to turn this other one off. I don't really want that one now. As you see, we're starting to build it, and then I can actually just get something like a marker, and this is how I used to work really traditionally. So I'm just going to get a marker, and I've just can label this. I'll just call it let's see, background, just to get it going, and then I'm just going to start just giving that a bit of a feel, and I'll put the markers out the outside here, bit of a color in the air, just to basically get an idea on how that structure might look before I go to the next stage, which will be possibly doing it in Photoshop, like what we're going to do for this project or this workshop, or actually even take it into the 3D program, which I do a lot, and you can use lots of easy 3D programs as well. But anyway, that's just a quick idea of getting it together, and I'm certainly going to draw up the other one which I just had here as well. So if I sort of just turn this one back on, there it is, and I'll go and finish that one. So that's sort of just how you should just work up your initial concepts. Do think about what it is you want to place in terms of what the stage looks like, or where you're going to use or put the set together, outside, inside, or wherever, and that's going to help determine your shapes as well. Okay, welcome to the template stage. So here's our file here, and I've got it as the template ready to receive it for projection, really just to do the testing when we actually put it together in the mapping program. And the program we're using is Madmapper. But how did I get from here? In fact, is this finished enough? Well, just for a start, let me just quickly show you what we can do just to beef it up a little bit more. I'm just going to create one more layer here, and in that layer, this will probably be the default at this stage, but click on here, you'll get your color. Just bring this in and go up the left there, just get a bit of grey, just a light tone here. With this new layer here, I'm just simply going to go and do a little bit of marquee just over everything, and then I'm just going to get my gradient tool and just run that up just a little bit to get a little bit of a feel. So that's great, but of course we've got some overhang there and you might not want that. So an easy way to get rid of that is I can basically just Command D, or just into the select here, just deselect it, Command D, Control D on a PC, on a Mac. So anyway, all I need to do is just come along and click on the ellipse tool here, and I'm just going to go just to my magic wand tool there. We don't have to be too precise about anything, but I've just got that. I'm just going to click on that one, hold the shift key, click on the middle one, and so I basically get everything selected. All you do is you just come back up to here, and it's the new gradient you put in there, and then just come down and just mask out that area. And it's all masked out, so it's good to go. But how did we get here? And this wasn't probably the ideal way I do it, because I've got 3D software to build whatever I want, etc. So I'm just going to come through here and just take you through. This is where we're going to go from there and take it to this next stage. However, if I just reduce this a little bit, this is what I've actually done, but I've used a 3D software. Now you can use programs really simple like Dimensions, that comes with a part of Adobe license and really simple and fast to learn. And I used a program called Strata 3D to do this one. It could be Maya, it could be Blender, it could be anything. It could be SketchUp, but just work the way you want to work with it. And what we're actually going to do, and the reason why I've done it this way, is just keeping it simple, because I'm going to keep it all in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how we get to the stage from this stage here. From the sketchbook, what I wanted to go with, and I think it's the design down the bottom left here, of course it is, loose as it is. Now I just want to build it. I'm not going to worry about all the shapes, just like that example I showed you, just going to keep it nice and simple for this demonstration. So what you might want to do is you could just save it as a JPEG, or just simply open it in to Photoshop. It's just a layered file at the moment. So to do this, all I need to do is I'm just going to close this version here. In fact, I don't even have to save it because it should be in this version. I'm going to get rid of that one I had here. Now I've got a few files here, and some of these are going to leave for you to work with as well, but this JPEG will be fine because that's the background I want. It makes it easier because I just saved one as a JPEG. Now I'm just going to drag this onto my Photoshop here, and it should just open up as a Photoshop version. So how do we get to there from here? Well, this was a reasonably large file, so it's really what I want from my screen version, and it's the projector size is a 1080p or 1080 1920 wide by about 1080 high, a good high definition projector. So what I'm going to simply do with this one is, just for the time being, I'm just going to put on a new layer. So I'll just click that there. So I've just got a new layer. Now I just better check that the size is okay. So if you come up just to image size, we just want tons of room to work with. And if you look at that, yeah, we've got tons of space, way higher than the 1920 pixels we want. So this is going to be fine. So to make it nice and easy, and I'm on this new layer, I'm just going to cancel that for the time being. I'm just going to use some cool little shapes here, which is basically these little shapes, line tool, custom shapes, whatever. But I'm just going to use some primitive shapes just to help me build it. So a good way to do this, I'm just going to leave it at this view for the time being. In fact, I might just make it a little bit bigger just so we can see it in the space. It's Command 0 just to fill the screen there. So I'm going to use nice primitive shapes just to build that. So here we go. I'm going to click in here, and in fact I think I'll start with just the rectangle tool first, just to get that working nicely. So I'm going to drag a shape like so. And what I really want this to be, if I come up to the top here, the rectangle, I don't want a white line, so I'm just going to go through here and just go no thank you. And on the fill, I'm just going to click on white, and that's kind of great. So now I can just click outside of that, and what I want to do is also make a ellipse tool. So to do that, I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to come here and just go to the ellipse, and I want to take it out from the center. So, well, I could actually drag it, but I'm just going to hold it from the center there. So hold the shift key. Oh, now what's going to happen is it's still going to try and select onto that one. So what should I do? Well, I better come over to my rectangle tool and just make sure we've got a path that's saved. So just go save path for now. That'll be fine. And now I can click outside of that and just go back, and I'll get my ellipse tool, and I'm just going to drag that out. Okay. So I'm just going to hold the option key, and then should just drag out nicely to about the size. And I'm just going to go and move that, not with the move tool, but we want to just work with the path tools, because this is a vector path. Just make it nice and easy, just to get the size actually a bit bigger. I can scale it to fit, okay? And then I can just click outside of that and come back in here on the path tool, and it just sort of disappears. Anyway, what I'm going to do is, on the path, I can click on these ones. In fact, you can go to the layers as well and just click on them there. I'm just going to duplicate it. I'm going to hold my option key, and I'm going to drag that across, shift key, just to line it up. That's great. And I can actually, even if I want to drag it a little bit bigger, actually I'll keep it just in there. And I'm going to go to my ellipse tool and do the same thing. And just drag that through and just line it up nicely. I think I'll drag that up there. And of course we can scale it at any size because it's getting a little bit bigger, just to roughly get the sort of style I want for my mock-up. And just back to the rectangle tool. Just click outside that and click back on that. Now if it's still stuck there, we can actually just come back to the path tool and click on the rectangle tool. And if it's still not selecting because I've got it on the same layer, don't worry, just come back to the layers here, and what I'm going to do is just come back, and I'm just going to get my direct selection tool. So I should be able to just grab that and option drag it as well. These tools are great. Got a little tiny curve on this one, that's fine. And I just want to scale it, so I'm going to come back to my path tool and then just go through there and scale it up. That's looking pretty good. And I think I'm just going to put just one big base on it. Actually, I might take this down to join the base. And I'm going to option drag that one down here, just like so. Take that through to about here and just drag it out. And so I get it fitting just nicely. Now you might notice that in the version that I made up before, it had some sort of 3D perspective aspects to it. So all we need to do is just come back to this pointer tool here and just grab these points here. And if it doesn't move like that, just select it like so, and you can just drag it out just to get it shaped nicely. And just go, yes, this operation will make it live or whatever, that's cool. And I'm just going to drag that one out to give it the same sort of effect. And that's looking great. Okay, and we can see all this ellipse starting to come together. Now for this background image here, I actually don't want that. I can just drag that to the trash now. And you see we've got our shapes just nicely. Now it's looking familiar, right? But we really don't want to keep them in this vector format. So I'm just in the layers here, I'm just going to go and just merge visible. So if I just bring them, it's just out of view here, but essentially just when we're putting this together from this little drop down just here, it's just going to have merge visible. It's just out of view, and it's basically no longer vector, it's just a pixel shape. But this is quite high definition. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and make a selection, just a larger selection to get everything in here. And then I can just crop this down. In fact, what I might do is just get nice and close. So we already established the right area that we want, and I'm just going to go image and I'm just going to crop it. So there it is cropped at the moment. Now all I need to do is, if I go and look at my canvas size here, it's going to give us a bit of an indication. We want to go to pixels. And yes, it's a little bit wide here, and it's a little bit bigger than I want. So great, we've got total resolution. So rather than cropping it, I'm going to come back and just go straight to the image size. And let's see, we're going to get, I want to get definitely the 1080 so it fits like it is at the moment. So I'm just going to go 1080. And that's going to fit the width in. And there it is a little bit, it's not as wide as it is at the moment. In fact, it's going to need to be a little bit wider. So I'm just going to go OK. And there it is, but with the right height now. So I'm just going to go Command 0, maybe just Command minus a little bit. But I now just want to go back to the canvas size and just make sure that we go back to pixels here. And it's canvas size now, and I just want 1920, and I'm just going to go OK, and just leaving it at the center. Kaboom, there it is, just perfect. Now we just want to bring in another layer, and I'll take this down to the bottom, and what we had before, I just better get the right colors. Well, in fact, what I'm going to do is go to the gradient tool here. I'll see what's in here. In fact, this is quite a nice grey that I want here, the black and white. But you can put any gradient you want in there, of course, and I'm just going to drag this down through here and see how that goes. And voila, I've got my background shapes, and of course, like we started off, we could put more tone and even build up some extra shapes in there. It's not perfect for this example, but we can tweak it up, of course, but it's good enough for what we want for this demonstration. Now what you're going to need to do is I can just go and save this, of course, because I might want to come back, or you might even want to replace that gradient layer we've just got here with an image, which is what you shot of where you're going to build your set, something like that. So I'm just going to save this one to my computer, and I'm just going to call this just set 2, just so I don't destroy anything. Of course, I'll leave most of these files in here that's relevant for you to have a play with anyway. I'm just going to save that. But really what I want for the background is I don't really want to finish a file. I do want just a JPEG of that. So I'm just going to go save a copy, save it back in here. And I'm just going to make sure that I don't have copy there. You can leave it as copy, it doesn't matter, but I just want just a JPEG. It could be a PNG as well, but JPEG will be fine. And I'm saving that to the background. Just level 10 will be fine. and just go Command 0 just to show you it's good high quality, perfect for our background, especially if you put some extra gradients in there. So that's how you get to that point. Next one, we're going to start building some assets in Photoshop for videos. Yes, videos, working with stills and video output for projection. For the ease of this workshop, just working with the simple template background to set up the projection quads, we're just going to stay with something simple. It could be as 3D as you want it to be if you have 3D software, but just wanted to keep this whole exercise really achievable. But of course, the designs, the initial design of what you might want to do with a project, taking it through to some storyboards, very simple, just loose, drawn by hand, perhaps even coloured up, so you give a bit more definition to the story you're presenting for this projection you're putting together, right through to very finished concepts and storyboards which require a very finished layout. With that, quite often what I've been doing is just going through a whole style guide, starting with how the projector is going to be laid out and outlining as a bit of a blueprint what the story is, drawing up that space with Sketchbook, which I've used for that and mentioned before, through to taking it through into a more coloured version to get the feel for it, looking at actual style guides of the illustration or animation technique that you might want to use, taking it through to actually working out the structure of the elements that you might project onto, and even the storyboard. In this case it was just the floor scene. A lot of work actually goes into the process and getting buy-in right from the start. So just initially, to get things going, take it through as far as you need to go to basically get the go-ahead. It's really important to get that presentation view good enough to the standard to basically get the buy-in for it. Okay, for this stage we're putting a video together. Now here's an example of a finished video, all done in Photoshop. So if I just come down into the file here, and if I just bring this up a little bit so you can see it, it's just a few layers here. I'm just keeping this really simple, but it's an animated GIF and it's just a still image. Let me show you how this works. By the way, you'll see this is a video group. Let's go and have a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to go to Window and I'm going to go to Timeline. In reality, putting this together, I would probably use something like After Effects or Motion or some other high-end software to give all the effects you wanted. But for this purpose, I want to show you actually how simple it is to do with Photoshop and how effective it can be as well, even though it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. Now what I've got here is a timeline. So if I just play this, you'll see how this animation works. So just go along to the playhead, and there's the file. Just got a very simple animated GIF just spinning through, and I've got a still image. So I'll play that through just once again. And I'm also using diagonals because they can add to extra effects with a very, very simple graphic. So just to come back to here, there is the Photoshop file. There is the video that's output from that. So if I just open this up and bring this to the top, just a 1920, I'll just play that again, and you can see how that's working. So it's going really smoothly. So sometimes you just need to render it to video as well to get the best output for it. Nonetheless, it's just working with a simple still like so. If I just drag that in to fit it, just a simple still. And we're also going to work with some other graphics, including what I've just got over here, the circle effect, which I've saved as an animated GIF, and you'll see how this works. And also going to introduce a little bit of a long layout into the scene so we can use that to animate, especially when we're doing scenes. One could be more related to a music type video or really pumping effects, etc. The other can be setting your background scenery, whether it's a photographic image you're using or just a simple drawn one like so. Nonetheless, all done with Photoshop. So let's get into putting that together. Right, let's get into building the video file. And we're going to work with both animated GIF and a still image to output as a video. So how do we do that? So I'm going to start off with just a brand new file here, and I'm going to come in here and obviously just go new, or Command N, Control N on the PC. Now, okay, 1920 by 1080, so we should look for that. No, not necessarily for this, because we're going to put a GIF in, and it could be a range of GIFs on different layers to start building overlays or different areas of the file. I'm just going to do it for one, just to show you the principle, but nonetheless, all I want is something rather small. Actually, this 500 custom size I've got here would be great. If you don't want 500, just change the custom size to whatever you happen to need. 72 dpi RGB, and we want it transparent. So let's go ahead and create that file. Now by default, because we had the timeline open, it comes up, and this time with create frame animation. And there's two things we can do there, the animation or the timeline, which is a video timeline. You might see it when you first come up, and this timeline won't be here. It'll look just like this. I'm just going to go Command plus just to drag it up a little bit. Now whether that timeline is open or not at this stage, actually it doesn't matter, because we need to produce the imagery we want to work with. So I've just got a color, a light one here. Now it could be white. We actually want a light color because we're going to put on a darker background for this example. If you want to put on a lighter background with other files you've got, just choose the color accordingly. I'm just going to make this very simple, really just purely to show the principle of it. So here's my color. I'm going to stay with this one, maybe a little bit lighter. That's great, and just go, okay, there's my color. I'm also using the brush tool, and I've just got a very simple brush. Could be anything you want, but I just want to demonstrate that simply. So there's my first layer. I could name this right at the beginning, but this will be fine for what we're doing. And I'm going to drag that layer that I've already put something onto the duplicate. So that duplicates it there. You need to have this, the preceding layers are all in within this animation if you want them all to appear. Otherwise I'll just go flip, flip, flip individual ones. So that's the way of doing it as well, but I want this all to appear. So I take this one down here, this one down here, this one down here, almost there. Just want to make this nice and simple, and this one down, or one more, just to fit nicely. Great. Now that's brilliant. Well, that's okay. Let's just see how it's going to go anyway. So for a start, what we need to do now is bring up Window down into the Photoshop timeline. So as I mentioned, we're keeping this nice and simple so you can easily produce really within one program to do most of the work, and also look at the power of Photoshop, and it makes it a lot cheaper and easier to work with rather than the multitude of programs that are available. Really, we're just going to use Photoshop mainly, and then Madmapper, which will be the projection software we'll be getting into soon. So by default, it's actually staying on frame animation, which is what we want. So all you do is you click on this. There you go, it's come up, but it's not going to play anything yet. There's only one frame. So while we've got that selected, we come over to the side and we click, and we go and make frame layers, or from layers. We can't see this, so I'm just going to bring this up, just so I'll get the Photoshop file and bring it up just a bit like so, where we can see it. And I'm going to click on that same graphic again, and now you can see it. Make frames from layers, and over here we've got all those layers coming in. Now with this, it's going to run pretty fast. Let's have a look. There you go, it's really, really fast. I don't want it to go that fast, so I'm just going to put on stop. I'm going to hold my shift key and select everything, and therefore in any one of them, I just want to slow it down. It could have 0.1 seconds or 2 just to make it slower, and now I'm just going to test that one, and that's just what I want. And I want everything to appear and then go back. So that's fine, just running over a few frames there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's great. Now at this stage, I can actually stop this. I do want to save it, so I'm going to save it. Make sure you save it into exactly the right program or space or drive that you're working with for this one. So just under File, Save, and I'm just going to call this, let's see, I'm going to save to my computer as well. So I'll go onto my computer. We could save it to the cloud if you're working on the cloud as well, but this is a file that I'm working with, so I'm just going to call this, I think I'll call it just GIF1 or GIF1, depending on how you pronounce it. And then I just know that that's the file that I'm working with. So naming does help, even though that's pretty loose. So I'm just going to save that Photoshop file, and that's exactly what I want. So I'll just go OK now, that's fine. Right, now this is going to be precisely what we want for doing video layers as we bring them in soon. But what I just want to show you can also do is if we're going to go File, and you see Export here, and we can go down to Save for Web Legacy, and when it comes up, it basically comes up as long as you're on GIF animation. You can actually change the amount of colors here as well, but I'm just going to leave it at the default. So the colors, if I want less colors, you can do that there. It probably still work great. But it's also got a fringe of white. I mean, see that little fringe around there? It stays as white. And that's what it's actually doing by default for how we're using it. But this is where you can save it if you want a preloader or something like that for a game or a web page if you're putting something together. For what I'm doing, I don't need that now because the Photoshop file is exactly what we need. So we've done our first part of this video presentation or video that we're outputting, and then now we're going to get into building the other one, and we're going to composite the two. Hold on, not quite there yet. We need to do one thing. So I'm just going to reduce the size of this so we see what happens here. We need to get away from a frame animation into a video animation. So to make this work when we combine the two, we need to be in the same format. So I'm just going to click here, and you're going to see right down the bottom, Convert Video Timeline, and it now looks like this. So if I just drag that back down, and I can actually just move this up a little bit here so we can see everything. Now it doesn't matter if you see it, if it's longer or shorter, but that's what we want. So at this stage, just save it, and we're going to be good to go now to work with multi-layered timeline with the graphics. So save and good to go. Okay, so putting the video together with the graphics. So let's just have a little bit of a play with this and just see what this looks like. So there is my graphics just over a 5-second piece. It's a little bit jumpy, but when we render it, it's going to be super smooth. So let's play that once again. So how did we get that? Okay, well let's go and start creating something. Now there's a few example files you could use with this, and of course use any of your own once you get your head around it. It's very, very simple. So I'm just going to go through and now create a new file. So just Command N or New. And this time I do want to go to 1920 by 1080. So let me see, where are the files here? Obviously want to go to Film and Video, which is going to give me the right size. And here it is, 1920 by 1080, and of course landscape, and let's go create. And here's our blank screen. Now also got my timeline down the bottom here. Now I can leave that here now or turn it off. It really doesn't matter how you bring it in, but we're going to need that in a little bit of time. But just for now, I might just turn this off just so we can see and get a little bit more real estate until we need that timeline. So I'm just going to go and turn the timeline off. So let's go and open another file, and I'm just going to just minimize this down here. I can just go File Open, but what I've got is some video formats here which have already been output, which is I've shown before, and just some stills. And I want to use this still here, which is just a ping image. It could be JPEG, it really doesn't matter, but the ping's going to be great. And I'm just going to open this. I can go Control click and just go open with Photoshop or drag it onto Photoshop. Nonetheless, we want it in Photoshop. So let's just open that up. Great, so here's our graphic. And it's sort of going to be good to go, but not quite yet. Let's just have a little bit of a look at that. This is quite a big file. Let's go and see the image size of this one. Remember, we're working with 1920 by 1080. And when I look at the size of this, it's a little bit large, so we should scale it down, right? No, because we're only going to worry about the real estate of what we're going to put into. Let me show you. So I'm just going to go to Edit Copy. And if it, make sure it does copy. If it doesn't, you can always go Command A, which does a selection, like so. And then I'm just going to go Edit Copy. And now I'm going to go to my new file here. and I'm just going to simply place it in. So just edit, place, or paste actually. And you'll see here it comes in as a new layer. So I might just give this a name, BG, and just hit return key, and there it is. But if I just minimize this down, that's why I wanted to have a nice clear time or space to work with, without the timeline rather. So there we go. We've got a lot bigger file than what we need, and we can see that by the selection there. Now that's great for what we're doing. And also remember I was talking about having things with angles on there. It sort of adds a little bit extra to it, if you will. So let's go and get this thing going. So I'm going to come back now because we do need our timeline. So I'm going to come back and just turn the timeline on, and T for timeline, there it is. And here's our timeline. And now we don't want to have a animation, we definitely want the video timeline. So once it's on there, if it's not, make sure it says that, and then just go and click on it like so. There you go, there's our video timeline. Now we can drag this out anywhere we want, and it changes the timeline. And I can drag it back, and let's see, how long do I want for that? Say 5 seconds will be fine, and just drag it past it, and you can drag it to it like so. So we've just got a 5-second timeline there. Okay, so if I was to play the animation, nothing will happen because we don't have anything happening. So I'm just going to go and open up, and we'll see we've got position, we've got opacity, and we've got style, which means style you can put drop shadow and effects on the graphics. We don't really want to use that one. You could use opacity, but we've only got one image at the moment and the background is white. So really all I want to do for this example is just use position, but of course you could use all these other things if you wanted to as well. Now there's also an audio track, and you can place it in an MP3. I'm not sure all the formats you can use with that, but probably AIFF and WAV file as well. But anyway, these are available to go on there, but we don't want that. We can either drop it into Madmapper itself, but you could if you wanted to in here as well. But let's go through and build this. So let's see, I'm going to click on position, making sure my head's right up, or playhead is at the beginning. So there's position, there's my first keyframe. I'm going to take this all the way through because I want it sort of to loop while it's sitting there, and it's going to be the same. So I can just click on it and just move it a little bit, and just like so, and then it makes another keyframe. So if I just take this back along the timeline here, now if you don't see all of it, you can just reduce in a little bit so you make sure you do see all of it. So now I'm going to just start moving this. I'm going to move this over to there, all the way up there. That's pretty cool. Then I'm going to go here and take it down maybe to that side, and go here and take it maybe to there, but I'm just keeping it visible in there somewhere. And I'm going to keep on doing this. Now, you don't really have ease in, ease out and a lot of effects in the Photoshop file. You can sort of download plugins that enable you to do with all scripts that can add a little bit of zest to it to give the feeling of easing in or ease out. But really for this, I would just say just use your keyframes a little bit closer or further away, basically to give you the feeling that you want to get. So I could just go something that's faster, and you can do it that way, etc. And really also with the projection, a lot of it's going to actually not matter so much because we're going to have all these other effects on there as well. So there's our timeline. So if I just go through and play that now, wow, we're really getting some quite cool things. And you see it actually starts speeding up and slowing down. We can actually move these anywhere we want, maybe if you don't like it. So we've got quite a few options. So great, okay, that's really putting together the first part. Now that wasn't too hard, was it? Let's just close that for the time being. And you will notice what I have done here is I've just reopened the position, opacity and style. So I just want to show you what's going to happen here, and also the length of this file, so we can just check on that as well. Now look up here, we can rename this video group 1 to whatever you want to name, like any layer. I'm just going to leave that here for now, but what I want to do is bring in or place in our animated GIF, and it's a little bit different. Watch what happens here. I'm going to go File, not Place, but Place Embedded. So we'd already set this file up. we're just looking for the GIF or the GIF, which is just one, GIF 1 here, and I'm going to place it in. So as it comes in here, it's creating just another video group, if you will. But let's just have a look at what that is happening here. Now it's coming basically where I placed it. So at this stage, oh, it's also a little bit stuck here because it needs the transform button to click. Now watch what happens. It's actually a smart object. And the difference too is when I open this up, it actually, instead of position, it has transform, meaning that you can actually scale it to whatever size you want. No problems. So we can just scale that and do whatever, just like the normal transform tools. I'm just going to go OK for this, and I'm just going to take it right back to the beginning, and I'm just going to slide that back in. I actually don't want to transform it just for the sake of this, but you can go through and do what you want with your one as you play with it, as these are really quite powerful tools. And I'm going to just copy this. So with that selected still, I'm just going to go Edit, and I'm going to go to Copy, and I'm just going to go to Edit, Paste. And I want to move this just to get it all linear, and just Command V, Command V. And now this lines up quite nicely there, but let's say it doesn't and you found this was out there. Well, no problem. Just move the length back to align it up, and just move your keyframers, because remember, if I just zoom this down a little bit, we want the start position to be at the end position if it's going to link around. Little things like that you can play with. I'm going to save this now, so it's just File, Save, and you know what? We're good to go. I'm going to go File, and I'm going to go to Export here, and what I want to do is render video. And this is Media Encoder right to an MP4, all done and dusted in the same program, making life really, really easy. And all I need to make sure that I'm sending it to the right folder, and that's pretty key really, as always is, so you don't have to go looking for it. But just 1920, 1080, great. It's all MP4, H.264, great. Let's just render it and see where it goes to anyway. So this is just going through the rendering stage, and it shouldn't take too long because it's only quite a short video. Nonetheless, we're going to have some fun when we put it into the mapping software shortly. So I can just make sure that's saved again. Yes, it is saved. That's great. I'm just going to minimize that for now anyway. And here's the file here. If I just bring it down here, let's just have a look and see how that looks. And this is going to be our core file to work with. So I'll just play that. And yes, that's looking great. Now, as I say, you can move each layer along to fit nicely, but that's fine. It's nice and short. It's nice and small for a large file, high quality format. It's going to be great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make one more video, and I'm going to just do this with a bit of a speed video. So it's basically, if I just minimize this down like this, basically we're going to sort of play through so we can animate that. So I'm just going to run this through as a quick video, but basically doing the same tools before we take it into the mapping software. What I've created is a little folder just called Map This, which I've just put all the files in that I've been working with. One of the key ones there is just that background template that was created in Photoshop, and then our two videos again created in Photoshop, just a simple image which is just to show how an image can work, and I've just chucked another little bit of a type motion file which is actually created in Adobe Animate. Doesn't matter where it comes from, but we're really, of course, focusing on Photoshop for outputting the video. Anyway, let's go and open up our Madmapper. So I'm opening up Madmapper. All the links to all these areas will be provided. but nonetheless, it's the latest version. I think just loading up here now, which is current as in September 22, and here's the file. Looks a bit small here, doesn't it? But I'm just going to drag it out to the size I want. Great piece of software which will enable you to really quickly put together things fast and effectively. Now, just a quick overview of this interface. We have our quads, and there's square quads, there's lines, there's triangles, circles, then there's masking and even into 3D, and the folder contains everything. So we're going to keep it quite simple. The other one is LEDs, which we're not touching. This area here we can actually add in things like sound and other effects. Not really going to touch that today, but if you wanted to add in your sound, it's a good way to do it as well, external sound. Quite often you put sound on the video files you're creating as well. We didn't in this case, but you can add a background sound to everything this way. And then just our settings. So for this, I'm just going to leave it just at its standard settings, and it's going to do a great job. But nonetheless, you can play with settings here. Just the key things we're going to work with is the quads and the video output to projector. In this case, it's just the screen that I'm working with. So if I just click on that, it will basically just come down here and it will show my screen, quite a large resolution screen here. So normally what you want to do is you will load in a projector. The secret is, if you load in your projector first, then it's going to, before you open the software that is, it's going to just pick it up. But I can actually just click a new projector like so, and here's my output here, and I can actually just say what I want that to be, and this output is just going to be 1920 by 1080. So that's just sort of quite a standard size, and we don't want to flip it or anything, we want to leave it just as is. Now I'll come back and visit these in a little bit, but we're just looking at the key things to get things going here. So 1920 by 1080, that's our projector, and this sets the projector size. We can add in a lot of projectors and we just plonk them above and below and around, etc. And we can even link up to multiple projectors with a show that actually expands a 360 degrees view if you could plug in that many projectors. Most of the laptops have 2 outputs, potentially 3, but you need to go directly from your source feed to get those working as well, so we can work with those individual outputs. Let's go and put this together. So number one, we've got on the interface here, this is the other key thing, we've got the quads, but as I mentioned before, here they are there, but we have our input output. This is input this view, this is output this view. Now you can actually just zoom in, click on the crosshair to bring it right to the outer output of it. We can click over this side or down and do the same as well. So just staying with the master, not the selection at this stage, we can zoom in with the selection as well here. Nothing, of course, here at this stage. Now there's a plethora really, of all sorts of other effects you can add to this, and you can even bring in from the outside. Down here, there's our scenes, and down the bottom right hand side here is the contextual menu about what's happening, and you can actually work with whatever has been selected. And here it is, just the resolution output of just this quad here because it's selected. Anyway, we also have down to the scenes here, scenes and cues. We have a control list. We can do interactive things with keyboards, MIDI devices, all sorts of things. Library of all sorts of other resources we can add in here as well. Really absolutely fabulous interactive stuff. We can go through, and this is for when you output into what's called a DMX output for when you're doing LED or other things, but or it's called a Mad Light recorder. We're not going to worry about these things at this stage. We have the fixtures, and we're not working with the fixtures either for LED, or even the code editor where we can sort of click and work with 2D, 3D, all sorts of things, so we can write the code yourself. We're not going to go complex with this one. We're just going to stay with our good old scenes. So here we are, and we're just ready to import the files we're going to work with, and then we can use these other effects on top of that. So let's go and do that. Now there's all sorts of things you can import, or basically like ISF shaders, interactive shader formats, which can really add life to your scenes, and won't be covered in this video, but it's definitely quite amazing, especially with Apple devices. Quartz Composer, not used so much now, but still has been amazing for the outputs, interactive thing. You can feed through source files from Quartz, and it's another file down here, Siphon, where you actually feed in through all sorts of output devices straight into the Madmapper itself. What we're working with at this stage is just images and movies. Speaking of movies, you can also have camera feeds that you can feed in live views as well from all sorts of outputs. All it comes down to is your machine performance. But still, let's go and stay nice and easy, and let's load in our image. I'll click on image here. I click on the plus. Now it's going straight to my file because I already linked that up, but it's the map, this file, and the image here is just a JPEG. Could be a PNG file as well, PNG file, but that's going to be fine. So I've loaded in that image, and now I want to load in some videos. So I've got all the rest here, videos, which I want to put in, or almost all the rest. I'm just holding my command key just to select what I want, but I'm leaving my background template for the moment, and I'm going to go open. So now we've got all these videos that come in here that are accessible to be used. One other thing, and the first way I'm going to set up is just our little template background, and if I just minimize that for time being, if I just open this up here, you'll probably remember that if I just drag it in, that was just a background that was set up from Photoshop. Of course, it could be photographing a scene, or we could drop a background scene in there and just drop our model on there to show how it's going to look when we're doing our previs, which we are for today, or even setting up a preceding style, which we're also doing today, for what the design will look like. So we get all the mapping done, even if we have to tweak it a little bit in the live scene, but mainly just a previs output for today. So I'm just going to close that. But what we want to do is bring this in. So what I mean by bringing in, we're going to plonk this in as our background for the projector. So to do that, I need to come back to my projector here, and there's my output there, and there's my screen. What I want to do is just come down here, and you're going to see background none, and then you're going to see this little button here. If I click on that, I can go through to that file. I just want to load in my source background template to help me design everything, and I'm going to go open. There it is. So this is just loaded in, and this is going to not be seen when we project, but it will be there for us to start mapping our shapes. So if I just come back to my right to the top left up here now, and I'm just back to my file, ready to begin the process of loading everything in. Now this is really the fun stage. Okay, let's load the content in and create the quads. So the first one here being the input, if I go and click a quad here, now I can have circular quads, triangular, I can actually even do lines which I can do effects with, etc. Not going to worry about that just yet, but we're just mainly staying just with our quads at the moment. Mainly the square quad being sort of a quad, I suppose. Now I've just clicked on that, and because that was sort of kind of the last one there, or selected, it's just picked it up. Now at any stage as that comes in, you'll see this is the input, this is the output. So what we do with the input, in fact, I think I'm going to just change this around to one of the ones we've already created just for now. So if I just click on that, double click, there it is, back to that one. So you'll see on this input, see how it's changing on the right hand side, the output there. So this is where you make your selection of what you want to show. So you can clip whatever it is you want. In fact, you can clip from one single video several different areas to make the quad appear, or the video of the whole area just done through different quads as well, and we're going to look at that just a little bit today. So here it is with the quad, but what I've got on this right hand side with this first quad that's in here now I can label this just by double clicking, and I'm just going to leave it quad 1 just to keep it simple for what we've got. But when you get big files, you can actually put them into folders and create a folder with those segments in there, through into just naming whatever you want as well. But I'm just going to keep it really simple for today, just to get the idea of how this works. And with this one, I'm going to select on it, and you see this one I can actually shape. I can do all sorts of things with it. So saying I've got this quad on there, I want some better screen real estate. I'm only using a small section of my screen, and it's great with a large screen which I've got on this Mac I'm using. But when you're working on a laptop or something smaller, you do run out of space. So I'm going to just go and turn this off from being both views. And to do that, I just click on the output view. So here's the input and here's the output. We need also, if I have them both on, flip them so they'll be up and down. But I just want to not do that. I just want to keep them side by side and click on the output for now. And I'm just going to drag that in, and I'm going to start setting that up. So just drag it. Now remember, the background scene is just simply the area that you're mapping. Be you shooting a building, we've made our own mock-up here, but really whatever the output is, so it doesn't matter. And I'm just dragging this quad here just over the top for now. And as you can see, I've just got this preview here as well, and we can sort of just drag it down and you can see what's happening here, and it's just running the animation. So we can sort of play with loops and speeds and, you know, palindrome, and or just running through once. These are all these settings in here that we can actually control by clicking on whatever we have by contextual or content selected. You can actually turn off that preview if you want some more real estate as well, but I'm just going to leave it on just for the time being. So with this file here, what I want to do is I want to get it to fit. So a great way to getting it to fit would be just to shape it. And really with the quad, maybe it's not the best. Now with the quad that's selected here and being selected at this stage, if we have a look down here, we see things like mesh warping, and we can enable and warp it, etc. But just to keep this nice and simple, you don't really need to go there just yet. I'm going to hold my Option key, and I'm just simply going to go and click on the top just to give it an extra line. So we've divided that quad up, essentially. Now you can also do Bezier handles as well. I'll do that just in a minute. I just want to line things up to just get me sorted here. So if I click that one, I've got a quad that goes through there. And with that top line, if I just click on that at the moment, see, we can shape that. What I want to do, in fact, if I hold it up, we just want to make it a little bit more curved there. So I can come down here and just click on the Bezier handles. So when I click on that, now I've got some handles here. So if I was just to drag that through to here, I'll drag that down maybe in there at this stage. And so we can control all of these. And this one, I just want to start shaping it. So I'm just going to start shaping it and just getting it fitting nicely in this view here. And then I can just start meshing that into its space and just drag it up. And I can just drag that one down to snap it in there, and drag that one to snap in there like so. Now you can zoom in a lot closer than I am. I just want to show you the whole scene at the same time. And as we just bring that a little bit closer, and just on this one here, I can bring that down just a little bit to snap it in there. Now if that one doesn't work, just click on the other one and then you can just drop it in. So as you can see, this can take a little bit of time setting your files up, but nonetheless you've got a lot of control, and we can option click to make all sorts of other shapes that are going to work as well. So this is just the first scene, and now we're just going to go through and map the others. So I'm going to do the same process, just getting the other ones put together as well. So I'm just going to jump the video to that next stage. Okay, so here is all the quads put together. Now you may or may not like that background pattern, but what we want to do is, actually I want to do something that's going to be more lined up with the base. I'm going to add one more quad in here. By the way, you can, of course, as I mentioned, turn everything off once it's unlocked here. We can also do that through there as well. We can turn this off so we can snap it or make it nice and loose to fit. Turn that on or off. And of course we can lock all our quads not lock them there, but lock them there, and then they can't be damaged. Right, now I've got one more that I've just put up there, and this is just a triangle, and that's just slapped in there. So let's just take that away again, and all you do is you choose different effects down the bottom. Before I do that, I am going to add one more down the base, and that's just going to be my quad for just the floor scene there. And I've got that mapped in just nicely, and there it is, just snapped in, and that's great. And maybe I'm just going to call that floor, just like I've actually renamed the other ones there. So floor, and just hit the return key. So here we have everything, and of course we can lock it on and turn it off. We can view the in and out, or in this case just viewing the out scene with my limited visual screen real estate. Now what I want to do, as you see, I put this background image down here, or the floor image. I want to actually make things work more as one. So I'm just going to open up my input output here and click through the different settings. So left, and what we can see, this is divided up into 3. So all I have to do is I move this into basically the third there. The middle one, I just move that in. You can see the lines, how they line up just nicely there to about there. And then the right, I'm just going to do the same. And then it's going to flick that in. And if you just view that, you can see now it's working more as one. So I'm just going to go back to just the output, and there we have one image working together. Now you will notice that what we've done when we played around with our effects and our mesh warping, we've actually warped that background. Now I really like that feeling or that treatment, but that may be not what you want. And we'll just demonstrate that just in a minute, because we're going to save this as one quad, and then we're going to see what happens when we add other elements in there and what we can do about it. So to see your scenes, I'm now going to go set a scene. I'm going to just double click on that and call it start, and I want to click on this little cog here, and I'm just going to give it a color, any color you want just to start off with. And I'm also going to give it a treatment which is just a ease in, ease out over 3 seconds. Now you can't see anything as yet because we're just on one quad, but you'll see what happens when we start changing things. So what I want to do is add in that triangular view, and that's going to be another scene. But please note, you always add the changes and then you click a scene. You don't click a scene first. You have to click that at the end. So for example, what I'm going to do now is add some more quads in here. There we go. In fact, I'm going to change that now with one of the other videos, which is this shape here. And I'm just going to drag that in and put that into the sides there. Put that over just there. So we've got our triangular shape there. And I'm also going to add in another one, which is just there. And do the same thing. And just drop that into this place. Of course, we can go backwards and forwards, changing as much as you want. And I'm also going to do one more, which is just the floor scene. Now, just with the universal sizing, it's a good one to click. So I can just plonk that down here until I get it fitting as I want. Maybe I'm going to do this, or actually I think I'll stay with the center panel just for now. Make that a little bit bigger. But then we can also just tweak by adding and dragging and distorting that way as well. So I'll bring it a bit higher, and that's exactly what I want. So now we've got our effects there. So that's great. So now it's when I click on this new scene here, and that establishes that. So I'm going to leave it as scene 1. That's a good name for scene 1. I'm not going to actually change the colors, but I am going to change it. I'll just leave it linear this time. Ease in, ease out, or just a linear. So that means it just changes quite evenly, where it slows down, speeds up, and slows down again, basically with the when you're working with the ease in or ease out, etc. So play around with that as you see fit. You can even leave some comments there. So I'll just click outside of that. Now watch what happens when I click on the start scene. and it changes over here, and I click on this one and then it brings it back. I'll just deselect it so nothing's selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have some fun with this one, so I'm going to move this one over here. I'm going to move this one over here, bring that back. Oh, and I'm going to go and change the graphic. So I'll double click on that. I'll click on this one, double click on that. This one I'm going to now move down, and I'll size it nice and small here, and I'm just going to put it into the floor, and we're going to see what happens there. Maybe I'll change this graphic because I can too. So there we are, and I'm now going to move this to a new scene, and this is scene 2. I'm going to come back through here, just give that a 3-second change, hit the return key, and just deselect there. Now let's have a look. I'll go right back to the start. There's my scene. Click on the second one there. There's the graphics that come in. And the third one, we can even swap our scenes around and our graphics. So really, really quite amazing in putting this together. So I do like the fact, as I mentioned before, that it was quite distorted. But what about when we're going to put in a background image? This is great for our music and more funky type effects. What about when we're doing scenes for shows? So I'm just going to make sure I save this at this stage. So it's saved. And what we're going to do now is add in a background scene and seeing what happens with that and what happens with the distortion. Okay, we're almost there. We're just going to now work away from what could be a music video background into more of a play background, something that doesn't dominate the performers in the front, but just supports them. And this probably doesn't do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and turn a few things off here. So you can basically, when you want to use anything, you can turn it all off. So I'm going to turn my circles and some of my shapes off here. Turn that triangle off there as well. I'm going to leave the floor on, and I'm going to just change some of these graphics just for now, just to show you what's going to happen. And I'm going to basically click on the background or the floor of the stage. I'm just going to bring the clouds in there. That's great. And I just want to put a new background in there, which is going to be this animated mountain scene. So a good way of doing that, I can just drag a selection over everything and just go and double click on that. And great, there's my background. Here's my background down the bottom. But look at the distortion that's happened with that, because we were using mesh warping before. So with the mesh warping, if I just click on any one of them, and you'll see that the mesh warping, we changed it and we did some crazy things, which are these points here. And they, in order for us to actually really distort for the shapes, and that's distorted the background, which was fine for the music video, which I actually quite like, but maybe not for this one. So how do we get around working with that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all of these off, except for the floor, because the floor is fine. And basically I'm going to create a new quad. And this new quad, we're going to do things in a slightly different way where we don't get the distortion. We want it to look like this bottom graphic. So all I need to do is add in a new quad here, and I'm going to call this mount, so I know what it is. And with that, I'm going to go through and I'm going to just size up to this background graphic. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to take it a little bit bigger, and I'll show you why. We're going to use some masking tools so we don't distort it. Just want a little bit of overhang. So I know that's going to work great, and there we go. So that's basically the shape I'm working with. Now, any of the other shapes we worked with in order to get a little bit more finesse, and especially this, how do we map it to the background? We can't see it. Well, maybe I should have showed this one a little bit before, but just to get things a little bit more visible, we can just change the opacity, just so we can see how things are going. In this case, I might even bring that in just a bit closer. So very, very helpful. Now this also worked with the other tools, but it wasn't quite so important to use it because we could easily shape those individual things. So what we're going to do is we're going to mask. Now there's a masking tool which is just here, or with selected, I'm just going to come down to the mask here and just click on the freeform mask. We want to make it shaped, not just a standard primitive shape, but I want to shape it. And so here's my mask here. So to activate this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to click. Don't try and use the Bezier tools yet. We can look at those in a minute. This has got some really good features to speed the whole process up. And I'm just basically going around quickly shaping this out for our scene. So the masking tools can be the easiest and fastest of the lot once we get those done. And you can see how quickly I'm fleshing out the shape of that. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, and what I'm going to do is drag all the way across here and not go to the end to join up, just underneath. Just click there, not try and join it, then hit the return key or enter P on a PC, and there it goes. So there's our mask. Might not be what you want, so just come down here and we're going to invert that. So I go invert. So that's what we're seeing, and of course we haven't got things too well shaped. Don't worry, just come along and click on the top points here. So I've just clicked on that top point, and I'm going to hit the B key for Bezier, and there you go. So now I can quickly just shape that out. Shape that one out. This one, just hit that or click that, and again just the B key, shape that out. Shape that out, and just to finish off, the same for the bottom one. And it might not be perfect, but it's a lot faster to work with than the others. And there's our shape. So if I click outside of that, we have our background. So there it is, and just make sure that we go back up to our full view now. So there you go. So we've got that scenery that's going through there. Now I could have actually had that more of a looping sort of feel, or just slowed it down even more. It depends on what you want to do with your video. Okay, and you can even have a bit of play within this actual setup as well. So we've got a speed, and we can slow it down there as well, but getting maybe a little bit jumpy. So sometimes just get your video sorted to begin with. And maybe instead of having it looped, we can actually just change that to just static. So if it goes through there, and then it just stops. So these are all the things you can do in the program. For the time being, I'm just going to have it looping, and that's fine, but I do want to save this scene. So I haven't deleted scenes here, I've just added more and turned them off. So I'm going to click onto this one now, and I'll call this just play, because it's going to be for a play, this version. And I'm going to click up here, I'll give it a color just to finish it off. And I'm going to make this nice and slow just for the time here, just say 5 seconds, and just ease in and ease out. So if we come back to the previous scene, there we are, back to our music video, or the funky part of the play, if you want to do something really dramatic, and then back to just the nice, easy scenes that we can work with. And of course, I'm going to save that. So essentially, that's the essence of putting all these things together with simple videos. Now, there's lots of other effects that you can play with here as well, and I'm just going to show you just one, just to give you an idea on how this can work. I'm going to create one more simple scene just to plonk in here with just a sphere, if you will, and I'm going to go into this cool shape here, and there we go. And what you can also do with anything, when you want to get transparency, I'm now going to come over here and I'm going to just go add. So I'm adding it onto the top. Then also I can click on the color, maybe RGB, and we can just use our sliders and we can change it to making it warmer or whatever. And that can sort of also add to the experience as well. So I'll just drop that down and I'll plug that more where I want it to be. And that could be a part of what you're putting together as well. So I'm not going to worry about saving that one. So it won't be in the scene, because if I click on another scene and then come back to it, it should just disappear out because I didn't save that in the scene. See, now when I click back in there, it's not there. Should I want to keep that, maybe I'll just do another one as a quick example, just a triangle this time. Should I want to keep any of these as part of what I'm putting together and without having to do the whole scene again, what you do is just update in the scene. So to update, you hold your control and go update scene. And then that becomes part of the scene. So if I click outside of that, go to something else, and come back to it, it maintains. So you don't have to redo the whole scene again. And then you can add any of those extra effects there. See if I just change the colors, and actually I want to go add and just change the colors as well, just to make that a bit more interesting. Then I control click and update scene, and that's good to go. And I'm just going to save the whole file now, and we're just now going to go and finish off to get our previs. So that's going to be just the final stage. Almost there. Okay, let's finish off with just the previs. Now a previs, you can use your screen recording, be it on a PC or a Mac, just using QuickTime on the Mac, and you can make a selection and play that with or without sound. And that's simply easy to do, but we're going to get all these lines appearing. And also what we have to do is we have to run it through here and record at the same time, but we could just screen that section. An easy way of doing that is basically just set up so the show's good to run all the way through. So I'm going to click on this cog over here for the settings. And what this means, this will run the whole show, where at the moment we're just running individual scenes. So I can put any amount of time duration, or I can even click it here and it'll be play a video. Once I finish the video, it will move on to the next scene. So I don't really want that on for this one, but I just want to leave it on 5 seconds just so we do a quick little previs and then it'll be good to go. So that's great. So I can click and play that, and you'll see that it's running through. If I just highlight it there, it'll run through this scene, that scene, and just continually go on each one in 5 seconds. But now all we need to do is click back onto just the projector area up here, click onto the output, which is what we set out for this projector screen, whatever it is. Even though we've dummied it up, we can make a dummy one or have a real projector if it's hooked in, doesn't matter, but we just want this for the previs. And you'll see desktop window. If I click on that, there's my little window which is just running through everything. So I can drag that up through to as big as I want, and then I can simply just do or use the screen recorder, PC or a Mac, and just record that scene and then stop it. And then I've got a little previs video which can be used for social media, and essentially you can size it according to whatever it is you want it to output, or use other editing software to size it down or up or crop it accordingly as well. Now one extra thing you can do, at the moment there is no background in the scene. If I close that, no background, and that's only at the moment this background is attached to making up our projector setup. So I can also come back into just my quads here, and I can create one more extra one. Now for this to happen, I actually have to stop it so it doesn't just keep on running through each scene. So it's just now staying on the one scene and not moving. So I've stopped it by just clicking off on the play button. And I'm going to create one more quad here. So what I want to do with this quad, if I just click on there and click on the quad, I'm going to call that just BG for background. And with that background, I can simply go and add one more element here. So I'm going to click on the images just up on the right hand side here. That's going to load in what I want for my projection template. I'll open that up, and with that quad selected I can just double click on that, and there it is. I do want to take this all the way down to the bottom so it's not in the way, but now you'll see it's a part of the scene. And you simply will need to just make sure that's activated. If I click onto another quad, you see it disappears there. So I just have to turn that on for that one as well and control click and just go update, as I do for all of them as I play through them, and it also needs to be turned on, and then I come and update here and just go back, I think, to the first one I've missed, so I can turn that on and come along and just update this version as well. And now when I go through and I do the same thing again, which is I need to do this from the projector scene, we come down here, just make sure it's highlighted on that, desktop window, and now you can see we've got that background in there, should you want it. So it will just play through there. At the moment it's not. Why isn't it? Because we simply just have to enable it to play from here again. So click there, and once that's highlighted, off it goes. Then just simply come back to your desktop window, which is just here, and it's just going to run through all of the scenes like so. And just simply record that for your previs demonstration for social media. So really that's the end of the setup right through to previs. So I hope that made sense and you enjoyed that, and just an intro to putting a whole show together with some fairly easy tools to work with, and using Madmapper, which is quite a complex software, just the easy aspects of it to get it going, and you're good to go. So thank you for watching.